Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So we're reading the Bhagavatam again, and we're going to be picking up from where we left off last time. Where was that?
Canto 4, Chapter 9, Text 29. So we read the first paragraph of the purport, which is like days long.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So I'll just read the verse again just as a reminder, but I won't read the next paragraph because we did read it. So we're going to go to the second paragraph of the purport, if you're following in your books. So the verse was, Maitreya answered, Dhruva Maharaj's heart, which was pierced by the arrow of the harsh words of his stepmother, was greatly aggrieved, and thus when he fixed upon his goal of life, he did not forget her misbehavior. He did not demand actual liberation from this material world, but at the end of his devotional service, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared before him, he was simply ashamed of the material demands he had in his mind. So that was the verse. And then the second paragraph, now we're going to start off the purport. In this verse, Maitreya replied to Vidura that Dhruva Maharaj, influenced by a revengeful attitude towards his insulting stepmother, did not think of mukti, nor did he know what mukti was. Therefore, he failed to aim for mukti as his goal in life. But a pure devotee also does not want liberation. He is a soul completely surrendered to the Supreme Lord, and he does not demand anything from the Lord. This position was realized by Dhruva Maharaj when he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead present personally before him, because he was elevated to the Vasudeva platform. The Vasudeva platform refers to the stage at which material contamination is conspicuous by absence only, or in other words, where there is no question of the material modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. And one can therefore see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because on the Vasudeva platform one can see God face to face. The Lord is also called Vasudeva. Okay, what did I just read? So Maitreya replied to Vidura that Dhruva Maharaj was influenced by the revengeful. So he went into it because he was upset, for heaven's sake, and he was right to be upset because his stepmother was very rude to him. So sometimes people do that, they pray to Krishna or Nrsimhadev or something because they're like, you better sort these people out, But they're still good because they went to the right source. They didn't go to like a hitman or anything. And anyone that comes in touch with Krishna, whichever way you come in touch with him, is going to get purified. Like you was using examples just in some previous readings about Narada Muni, who always comes across like, people that ain't good, up to no good, like the hunter or this or that, and he just somehow engages in them in some sort of service, even by the fact that they do what he tells them to do, whatever. They become purified, they become devotees. So it's good, even if you're upset, to go to Krishna, because you will benefit in the long run.
Interesting. I mean, I think we should bear in mind that we have to be careful that we don't pray for the Lord to bring harm upon others.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, your point is taken that we don't. We go to the Lord for whatever it is that we want, and that's true. But in general, as a devotee, as someone who is meant to be advancing in bhakti, then we generally don't wish harm on anyone. Not even an ant or a spider. which we found quite a large one this morning.
Oh, it was horrible. It was in the shower. It was so horrible.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
But here, it seems a couple of points. Of course, the Vasudeva state, which is the platform of pure goodness, and I've read in different places that it refers to Vasudeva, the father of Krishna, who was in that state of consciousness, so therefore the Lord appeared within his mind and then was transferred to the womb of Devaki. And also this principle of mukti, that it seems at first Dhruva Maharaj is being kind of, not exactly criticized, but, that he wasn't exactly going to the forest to achieve the highest levels of freedom from the material world. He actually went there with a material desire to stay in the material world, but to have a kingdom here greater than Lord Brahma's. But then Prabhupada points out in the purport, which is very important, some nice statements there, that actually the devotee is not interested in liberation anyway. The devotee just wants to serve the Lord wherever the Lord wants him to serve him, without any questions or any desire for material profit and like that. So anyway, interesting. Okay, next paragraph. Dhruva Maharaj's demand was for a position so exalted that it was never enjoyed even by Lord Brahma, his great-grandfather. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is so affectionate and kind towards his devotee, especially to a devotee like Dhruva Maharaj, who went to render devotional service in the forest alone at the age of only 5 years, that although the motive might be impure, the Lord does not consider the motive. He is concerned with the service. Now, we often hear just the opposite, I have to be honest. Often we hear it's not what we offer, it's the intention behind the offering. It's the love with which we offer it. So, that's kind of interesting. But if a devotee has a particular motive, the Lord directly or indirectly knows it, and therefore he does not leave the devotee's material desire unfulfilled. These are some of the special favors by the Lord to a devotee. So, the last part clearly makes sense, but in general, and it may be usage of language, but in general we hear this term that the Lord is Bhakta Vatsal and Bhakta, there's another Bhakta, can't remember the term, but he accepts the bhakti. And so even when Vidura's wife was serving him banana peels, I think, and throwing the bananas away because she was so enamored, Krishna still offered it because he was more interested. Yeah, he accepted it. Thank you. Because he was more interested in the mood or her motive rather than what was being offered. So here it seems to be kind of saying the opposite, doesn't it? Yeah. That the Lord accepts the service, not necessarily the motive. And to be honest, my understanding is that probably both are true. But in general, we hear more that it's about the bhakti. It's about the love and the consciousness with which we do something that Krishna offers. Because whatever we're doing, the service itself may not even be successful. And that's the example of Arjuna. Krishna said to him, even if you don't win, even if you're not successful, there is no loss or diminution on this path because you've tried. So like that. Anyway, it's an interesting point.
Alright, next paragraph. Dhruva Maharaj was offered Dhruva Loka, a planet that was never resided upon by any conditioned soul. Even Brahma, although the topmost living creature within this universe, was not allowed to enter the Dhruva Loka. Whenever there is a crisis within this universe, the demigods go to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shiradakshay Vishnu, and they stand on the beach of the milk ocean. So the fulfillment of Dhruva Maharaj's demand, a position more exalted than that of even his great-grandfather Brahma, was offered to him. It's quite convenient that the planet's called Dhruva Loka, isn't it? Because his name's Dhruva.
Well, I think it's called Dhruva Loka after him.
Oh.
I don't think it was Dhruva Loka before.
Okay.
Dhruva went there. Hey, Bhagavan.
Oh, it says was offered Dhruva Loka. It doesn't say was offered.
Yeah, because that's the name of the planet, and
I see.
But I mean, it's also known as Shweta-dweep. What's another name? It's the North. The North Star, the Pole Star.
Ah, yes, I've heard. Yeah,
those are other names for it.
Yeah.
So Dhruva Loka is just a name that's given after Dhruva. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a poster.
It's not like, oh, that's interesting. Henry Ford got a company called Ford Motor Cars. I mean, wow, isn't that coincidental? No, it's not coincidental at all.
I think we get the point. Thank you very much.
I'm going to drive it and drive a Ford. Okay, here in the verse, the Lord is described as Mukti Pati, which means one under whose lotus feet there are all kinds of mukti. There are 5 kinds of mukti: Sayuja, Sarupya, Salokya, Samipya, and Sharsti. Out of these 5 muktis, which can be achieved by any person engaged in devotional service to the Lord, the one which is known as Sayuja is generally demanded by Mayavad philosophers. They demand to become one with the impersonal Brahman effulgence of the Lord. In the opinion of many scholars, the Sayuja Mukti, although counted among the 5 kinds of Mukti, is not actually Mukti, because the Sayuja Mukti, from Sayuja Mukti, one may again fall down to this material world. This information we have from the Bhagavatam 10.2.32, wherein it is said, Patantyada, which means they again fall down. The monist philosophers after executing severe austerity, merges into the impersonal effulgence of the Lord. But the living entity always wants reciprocation in loving affairs. Therefore, although the monist philosopher is elevated to the status of being one with the effulgence of the Lord, because there is no facility for associating with the Lord and rendering service unto Him, he again falls into this material world, and his service propensity is satisfied by materialistic welfare activities like humanitarianism, altruism, and philanthropy. There are many instances of such fall downs, even for great sannyasis in the Mayavad school. Okay, so really Prabhupada is just focusing on the different types of mukti that are available, of which Sayuja Mukti is not one that generally the devotees are interested in, but it is one that the Mayavadi followers or philosophers demand. Prabhupada used that term, demand. But I like this, that Prabhupada says that there's a debate amongst different scholars whether this is actually a form of mukti or not, because you fall down from that position due to being an individual, independent, minute spark of the Supreme Lord. We still have the desire for relationship, personal relationship, so therefore we can't experience ananda, real bliss, and that form of liberation. So we fall down to engage in all these different altruistic activities like that.
Okay. Next paragraph. Therefore, Vaishnava philosophers do not accept Sayuja Mukti to be within the category of Mukti. According to them, Mukti means transferal to the loving service of the Lord from one's position of serving Maya. Lord Chaitanya also says in this connection that the constitutional position of a living entity is to render service to the Lord. That is real Mukti. When one is situated in his original position, giving up artificial positions, he is called Mukta, or liberated. In the Bhagavad Gita, this is confirmed. Anyone who engages in rendering transcendental, loving service to the Lord is considered to be Mukta or Brahma Bhuta. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that a devotee is considered to be on the Brahma Bhuta platform when he has no material contamination. In the Padma Purana, it is also confirmed, mukti means engagement in the service of the Lord. That's nice. Mukti or liberation simply means to reconnect with Krishna and to render service, which means in one sense we are all liberated. And we don't need to worry about. It's interesting because this came up yesterday in a meeting with some ladies, and they were talking about different schools of thought, or Gaudiya type schools of thoughts and otherwise, and just one particular school of thought that is suggesting within ISKCON, for example, you don't know enough. You don't know enough to be liberated. You weren't told enough, like that. You know, certain school of thought. So, and it's interesting because really Prabhupada just gave us the most easiest, simplest and nicest way to transcend what in previous ages, or maybe in these ages there may be people doing this, there are people doing it, you know, where you have to go through so much austerity and mind and sense control and live in such a way which isn't always fulfilling in terms of, but it's interesting. Prabhupada literally just said, just add Krishna, and it's true, you can be any, you know, ashram, occupation, lifestyle as such, as it were, within, you know, not breaking the regs, whatever, but you add Krishna and people are becoming benefited and happy and progressing, and yeah, it's really interesting, you know, that you don't need to know certain beyond esoteric things that you don't understand, because you don't have the purity or mental faculty to understand now anyway, and can be taken in a weird way. Like even just, we were just somewhere and seeing a certain type of interpretation of Radha and Krishna in a painting, for example, just someone's understanding of their relationship, and you know, it can be like, well, what's that all about? It was just a bit too mundane, if that makes sense. And that can also make people think a certain way of Radha and Krishna and who they are and their relationship and what they do, you know.
Well, the picture was actually, I mean, you say mundane, but that's an interesting concept. But the picture was just rasik, which means it could be interpreted as mundane, but for a pure devotee, they don't see mundanity in the Lord interacting with his own energies, what to speak of with his Ladini Shakti, the personification of his pleasure potency, who is Srimati Radharani. Yeah. So there's nothing mundane.
But I don't know how many pure devotees are going through that place. Look, I mean, I'm not pure devotee, so for me it was like, well, I don't really want to see something like that. That's my point.
Yeah, and that's
and
about you.
Therefore kept, for me, everything on a level where a conditioned fool like me can relate without being like, you know.
But this is a big topic, and I agree. And of course, Prabhupada you could say he wasn't, overtly rasic and things that he did, whereas other gurus later have been, or in different lines are. But Prabhupada also didn't discourage us from, once we are qualified, and this is the point of Shivaram Maharaj's Krishna in Vrindavan books, that it's not that devotees should not try to hear these pastimes or engage in hearing these pastimes and loving relationships between Radha and Krishna especially, but it should be done in such a way that where our consciousness is ready to not see it as mundane. And that could take some time for different devotees, and we have to be careful. Interesting. Now, I think we're out of time, so we should stop again.
It's such a long...
some more of this purport again.
Okay.
So I think we finished with the great sage Maitreya, right?
We did indeed.
All right. Okay, so thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Please read Srimad Bhagavatam in your own time, at your own pace. And thank you for joining in and watching us. We're very grateful. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.